Welcome. I know this is a little different for everybody today. My name's Monty Detterman, if you don't know who I am, Director of School Operations here. Kind of new into this position this year, been doing some work with Mr. Fuji last year. Obviously, Mr. Fuji took over for the Career Pathways program, which if you don't know, that is a pillar. All right, so he's doing that this year, and I've kind of stepped into his position this year and working with all of you. I had a lot of questions about what today was about. With the district, we have 4 pillars that we're working on this year as areas of expectations that we're going to be really working on in the district to move forward. Leader in Me is one of those pillars. Now, I know some of you have been in your building trainings this last summer, and I really want to thank all of you that participated with your buildings in that. And I really do appreciate that. You're going to get a little bit different look at it today from a district perspective, okay? Those trainings were the Leader in Me trainings from Leader in Me. Today it's a little bit more of a district perspective. So as we are moving forward in the district, you guys are very, very much a very important piece of this district moving forward. You see kids every day. You interact with kids every day. You're a valuable piece to this puzzle for the district. So, Leader in Me being one of our pillars. Career Pathways being a pillar. Does anybody know the rest of them? I already named those 2. Anybody? Literacy Collaborative is a pillar. Sorry? Well, the Career Pathways Diploma Plus is one. Next Generation Learning Environments. Nice job. All right. So during this presentation, you're going to be hearing from some of our district people that are going to be working on this. They've kind of been focused on this. You know, obviously at Harrison, they've been a Leader in Me building for 4 years now. I was going to say 3, so thanks for correcting me because I would have been wrong. So they've been doing that, and now we've got all the elementaries really getting involved in this. The middle schools getting involved in this. High school really starting to investigate those pieces.
All right, good morning or afternoon, depending on what time you got up. I'm Scott Curtis. I am from Grant Middle School. I'm assistant principal. People at Grant, raise your hand. Give me a shout out, give me something. That's what I'm talking about. We have Mrs. Filliator, who's the principal at Benjamin Harrison, and Mrs. Bauer, who's the principal at McKinley. We're going to talk to you today about a couple of things, but before we go through that, just kind of clarify, if you guys need to use a bathroom, just go do it. If you don't know where they are, you go out here by the main office. Male and female restrooms are back there, so just take care of your business, do what you have to do. And we're going to have some transition times. As we go through, we're going to have you share them with an elbow partner and doing some different things like that. You're going to see when we're trying to get everybody back in, because when I got roped into this, I didn't realize this many people would be here. So I'm glad all you guys are here, but in order for us to try to be efficient and get through all the information that we have and try to cut you guys out early, you're going to see us raise our hand. And if you could just mimic that and raise your hand, that's a way of telling the people around you, hey, we're trying to come back together so we can continue the conversation, okay? As we go through these things, it's a lot of information. They told us we had 90 minutes. All the staff went through in 3 days, the certified and administrative staff, so there's a lot of information to get through. Just to touch on what Monty said, in my opinion, first person kid sees when they walk in the office, whether it's positive or negative, is one of our secretaries. Most important people in the building. Because I rely on the secretaries to give us information about, hey, how many times has little Johnny been down in the office or whatever those things might be. So while this might be brief, it is important. It's incredibly important, and you guys are going to be a huge part of that as we continue to go forward.
I have to apologize that if any of you know me, I'm not very shy, but talking in front of a bunch of adults, I really am. So kids are easy. You guys are sometimes a tough crowd. So if you could smile every once in a while and make me feel good, I'd appreciate it. So today what we're talking about is Leader in Me. And one of my favorite Dr. Covey quotes says, leadership is communicating to people their worth and potential so clearly that they are inspired to see it in themselves. We are all leaders in our buildings and in our positions and in our roles. We all affect children and we all affect each other. So we're going to really be looking at the habits through this. So many of you can probably visualize different leaders you've had over your lifetimes, bosses, leaders, co-workers, anything you can look at that. And there are certain pictures you may have of leadership. And one of the pictures you may have in your head is something like this.
When we asked Reebok to send us Terry Tate, some people thought we were crazy. But I'm a firm believer in paradigm breaking, outside the box thinking.
Hey, buddy.
Break was over 15 minutes ago, Mitch!
And since Terry's been with us, our productivity has gone up 46%. We're getting more from our employees than ever before.
You know you need a cover sheet on your TPS reports, Richard! That ain't new, baby!
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Janice!
But what's really impressed me is how Terry's become part of the Felcher family.
Get high, baby!
He fits right in here.
That's a long-distance call, Doug!
To be honest, I wish Reebok sent us 10 Terry Tates.
You wanna play games, Gene? Well, when it's game time, it's pain time, baby! Woo!
Well, I assure you that we are looking at breaking paradigms, but we're not going to come that way at you. So we're really looking at, with Leader and Me, we are trying to show that each one of our students and each one of us, we are all leaders. And so our paradigm just means it's the way, we're back one, Scott, sorry. Something strange happened. Our paradigms just mean the way that we look at things, the lens through which we see things. And some of us have been in the education system since we were 5 years old. And we have a certain way that we expect things to be, and a certain way that, you know, these people are in charge and these people are not. And with Leader and Me, we're looking at everybody's in charge of themselves. And so that's where we're really looking at this paradigm shift there. I think, Scott, we need to go back one more because I think we missed our goals for the day. Now we're going forward. Yeah. There we go. So one of the habits is begin with the end in mind. So if we keep our end in mind for this moment, this 90 minutes together, is for you to understand the 7 habits of highly effective people. And if you attended the training or have ever been trained in the 7 habits, will you please raise your hand? Excellent. So we have a lot of leaders already in this building that know this. If you want to give them a round of applause because they donated their time and came to join us. So a good round of applause for them. Yeah, thank you. The second thing is that we're going to talk about how you can support the Leader in Me in your role. So everybody plays a part in this. So those are our end in mind. I know your end in mind might be the lunch that's coming in at the end, but we'll get to that, I promise. Okay, now we're ready. So Leader and Me, when we first, we're having all kinds of fun. When we first started Leader and Me, I was blessed to be at Harrison when they went on this journey. And the first thing that we did was read the book, A Leader in Me. And as I reflected on my teaching experience, you know, I started out in a county school, moved to the city, and never have wanted to leave because we have the best kids. We have the kids that need us the most, who need the most love. And I'm looking through this and I'm reading it, and the thing that speaks to me the most is that the paradigm shift that we're looking at is that there's primary greatness and secondary greatness. And Dr. Covey talks about how everybody cannot necessarily achieve secondary greatness. That's positions, titles, awards, wealth, fame, rankings, and rare accomplishments. But every student, every child, every person in this world can achieve primary greatness. That's our integrity, our work ethic, how we treat others, our motives, our level of initiative, our character, our contributions, all of these things. And I reflect upon when I go out into any business situation, and I don't care if I'm working with a doctor or if I'm working with going through, you know, Wendy's, because that's how I cook dinner constantly. You know, I don't care which one I'm going to. If I have somebody that has primary greatness waiting on me, it makes my day better. You know, the person that is happy to be there, thanks you for your time, and greets you with a smile. It makes your day, or it can also break your day. So that's the paradigm that we're looking through. Every single person is a leader. And so the motto is, we find the greatness in every child. And that's what we're looking to do. And so first, we have to find the greatness in each one of us and celebrate that. I think we go to the inside out. Hopefully it'll go. You just get, something strange happened. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the inside-out approach real quickly. So when you go through the 7 habits, the deal is that you work on yourself first. So the first 3 habits, it has to do with something with the way it's projecting. The first 3 habits are what we call private victory. They focus on us, because if we cannot be in charge of ourselves, we cannot help others and work together. So we're going to be talking about the first 3 habits, and then we're going to move to habits 4 through 7, which are what we call the public victory. That's where we start working together. So this is very different concept where we're used to teaching kids something that we haven't necessarily embraced ourselves. So if you can kind of think about that we're focusing on ourselves first. So you do have a couple handouts. One of them, the one that is in color, tells you the 7 habits, so you don't have to try to memorize them. That's good news. And it has some bulleted points about what the 7 habits mean, each of those. The second form is one where we're going to ask you, as we talk about each habit, we're going to ask you to brainstorm how you can use this habit, and then also how can we use it to impact kids. So you're going to be looking at a twofold approach. At the end, we'll be brainstorming as a collective group in each of our groups of how we can go forward with this in our buildings. Oh, okay. This just reminds me when Mrs. Filiator is talking, when Leah's talking like that, if you have any questions, we were told to make sure we talk into the mic. So she's going to make copies if you need those. So we'll get with that there. Yeah. What are you going to try to go take? Can you just do that? Yeah.
Usually I'm pretty tech savvy, so only on a day like today, with maybe 150, 200 people, I lose my mind. So I apologize. I'm not sure some of the settings are different here. We're going to start with the first habit because it's the most important. So they work in sequential order. And essentially it's the idea that you can happen to whatever it is you're involved in. Okay? If you're getting attendance in by 9:30, or if you're trying to, deal with 10 kids and the principal's doing an observation, or you're dealing with an unruly child on the bus, you can happen to that situation. So you create the opportunity or not. So the idea is that you're in charge of your response no matter what the stimulus is. Okay, so this is something that you're going to hear not only from us but also going towards kids, that kids are responsible in order, no matter what their situation is, to happen to whatever it is that might or might not be happening to them. The idea is that we're going to move from a crisis, constant, reactive state of mind to the other side, which is what Covey would say is quadrant 2. So we're planning, we're preparing, and we're relationship building. And that is the most important habit of all of these, which is why we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about that today. So just to be proactive. And the idea, sorry this isn't up, but the idea is that simply from kindergarten, all the way through our high school kids, we're telling them that they're in charge. You're in charge of you, no matter what your situation might be. So a lot of times it might not seem like a traditional mindset where, a kid might have an issue in the classroom where we're going to throw them out. Well, we're also going to coach them up along the way, because until they understand that thought process, that they're in charge of themselves and their response, it won't change. So we have to coach the kids as they go through that process of learning what it truly means to be proactive and to happen to something rather than something happening to you. So we got a video here that we'll show that. Just a second. Those of you guys that can't see it, I'll go ahead and read it. I am a responsible person. I take initiative. I choose my actions, attitudes, and moods. I do not blame others for wrong actions. I do the right thing without being asked. even when no one is looking. So you'll notice the noun in that sentence over and over is who. It's the individual. So his first 3 habits are going to focus on us as ourselves. We get into 4 through 7 is when we start talking about working with everybody else. So as we go through the day here, and we're going to circle back at the end, really kind of trying to tie in this, that we are responsible for us first, for ourselves first. Okay?
Monday morning, and it's raining. A gray, melancholy day. On a day like this, maybe we can be excused for feeling gray and melancholy ourselves. We get into a mood, and the whole day seems to go badly. Don't you feel better when the weather outside is great? But what if you could carry your own weather within you? What about the social world we live in? Don't you feel better when you're treated better? That's being reactive to what we could call the social weather, the social culture. When you carry your weather with you, you can choose to be consistent regardless of how people treat you. That's what it means to be proactive. Being reactive is the opposite of being proactive, not taking responsibility for our own life. You always see yourself as a victim of the weather, of your moods, of someone who has it in for you. Habit 1 is based on the principle that your life is the result of your own decisions, not your conditions, not what's happening around you. That's why habit 1 is so foundational, so basic. Unless you practice habit 1, you can never practice the other habits of highly effective people. Years ago, I was doing research in a library in Hawaii. While thumbing through a book, I came across an idea that changed my whole outlook. The author said something like this: between what happens to us, that is the stimulus, and our response is a space. In that space lies our power and our freedom to choose our response. And in those choices lie our growth and our happiness. This insight sunk deep into my heart. Even in the midst of challenging circumstances, we have this exhilarating power to choose how we will respond. For instance, the great Viktor Frankl, the Jewish Austrian psychiatrist imprisoned in the death camps of Nazi Germany during World War II, experienced unbelievable indignities and tortures. He was raised to believe that you are basically a product of your childhood. But while he was in the death camp, he began to observe some very interesting things. Different people reacted differently to the same circumstances. He himself experienced terrible things. Some of his own loved ones were killed. One day they stripped him, put him under lights, and performed experiments upon his body. At that lowest possible point, he discovered what he called the last human freedom, the power to choose your own response to any condition, to anything that happens to you. During his darkest moments, Frankl would visualize himself lecturing to his students in Austria following his release. He pictured himself teaching them about the very experiences he was having then. He came to believe that the most basic human capability of all is that between stimulus and response, man has the freedom to choose. Frankl later determined the thing that enabled survival in the death camps was not necessarily intelligence or survival skills, but a sense of purpose, a contribution yet to be made. This became the basis for his brilliant autobiography, Man's Search for Meaning. It's not what people do to us that hurts us. It's our chosen response to what they do that hurts us. As Gandhi put it, they cannot take away our self-respect if we do not give it to them. We must simply never build our emotional life around the weaknesses of other people. Otherwise, we give them permission to continue to mess up our lives. We give our future away. Several years ago, I was making a presentation on this subject of proactivity, and a woman stood up in the middle of my speech and started to give a speech on her own, spontaneously. She was filled with explosive learning and excitement. You could see in her eyes, her gestures, her body language. And then she sensed the inappropriateness of what she was doing. She sat back down. I could hardly wait until the break to talk to her. "What happened to you?" I asked. She shared her story. She said, "I'm the full-time nurse to an extremely miserable man. He doesn't even acknowledge me, let alone show me any form of appreciation." She went on to explain that this elderly man, entrusted to her care, was absolutely miserable and took his misery out on her. She was becoming more and more depressed and hated the thought of going to work each day and facing this irritable man. All of the other nurses felt the same way. They talked even of his demise, wished for it, hoped for it, while they were taking care of him. Then she said something to me. "For you to stand up there and suggest that I am choosing to be miserable was almost too much. But then, listening to you, I suddenly realized that I do choose to be miserable. Before, I believed I didn't choose it. He made me. But then I realized how dependent I am. I'd given my power over myself to him and his miserable behavior." "As I thought about what you were saying," she said, "I realized I had the power to choose and felt like I had been let out of prison. That's why I stood up. I could not contain myself. I just can't tell you what that means. This feeling of freedom is almost overwhelming. We have the power and the freedom to choose, to create our own weather each day. As Bishop Fulton J. Sheen once said, each of us makes his own weather, determines the color of the skies in the emotional universe which he inhabits."
All right, so I'm going to call it 30 seconds with an elbow partner. You guys that are on the aisle, it's going to be your right-hand person. And just turn and talk to somebody about what it means to carry your own weather and that you have the freedom to choose your response. You guys are really, really good. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not saying anything about a particular building better than the teachers. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. That was a very fast transition with this many adults in the room. Hey, hopefully you talk with your elbow partner about how this language could impact you or maybe not. I'm going to share just a quick example, very broad and abstract. So just as I do that, think about how this might impact you and the people that you interact with every day, whether kids or adults. I will tell you that 99% of the time that we have behavior issues, and I concentrate in the 8th grade. So the 8th grade students that come into my office, when they're in quadrant 2, right, they're reactive. The teacher told them to do something, they don't want to do it. Well, I can focus on that and work on compliance, or I can encourage and coach them to understand that they have the freedom to choose. I live in this area with kids every day, all the time, and it's tiring and it's hard. So to watch a 7-minute video is kind of a short-sighted approach, but just kind of put your toes in the water to think about, man, how can we do this with one another more effectively, where we're happening to something rather than something happening to us, okay? So the visual that goes with this, things that I cannot control. you could go on a personal example of this. Common Core would be one for us. Can't control it. You're doing it. Great, thanks. Things that I can control is how we deliver that to kids, just as an example. Okay, so think about that visual and think about the very, very center mass of that visual. That is you. And that everything pushing out towards that is your response to anything, whether you can or cannot control it.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to habit number 2. No? I lied, we're not. Oh, Mr. Curtis, are you going to talk about proactive and reactive language, or would you like me to? So this is something, when we have students out on the playground that come in, they've gotten into a fight, and the other kid made them do it all the time. It's always the other kid's fault. Coming back to habit 1 is great from a principal's perspective, because we can talk about their choices and their actions and put it back on them, because they can only control themselves. At the end of the day, we all can't control anybody else except ourselves. So these are language statements that we use with kids, but we can also use with adults. Reactive is you're kind of helpless and hopeless. There's nothing you can do. It's everybody else's fault. The world's against me. But when we're proactive, let's look at other options I have. I'm in charge of myself. We use that carry your own weather a lot with kids. They come in, how's your weather today? Kind of cloudy? All right, well, you can fix that. You can turn that day around. So you might see that around the buildings too. Do you want to add something?
So if you'll just take a quick moment on that paper that you have that has the 3 columns, what we would like you to do is to think about 2 pieces here. And again, if we accomplish nothing else today, if you can walk out with a good understanding of being proactive, and you can really apply this to your lives, it will make everything better, including at your home life. So maybe a good personal example you may find is with your spouse, or with your children, that sometimes, it's always, I don't know about your house, but in my house, it's always my fault. No matter what happens, if my husband trips over a toy, I guarantee it's my fault. Somehow it gets traced back. So a lot of times I'll say, are you being proactive? Or I kind of think sometimes reactively, why don't you watch where you're walking? Then you wouldn't trip over toys. So what we're going to ask you to do throughout this presentation, and if we try to get ahead of ourselves, what we want to do is slow it down and think about how could students use this habit of being proactive, but also how can adults use this habit? And it will affect you in 2 different ways. One way it'll affect you is your personal life, because remember, inside out approach says we start with ourselves. If we can't apply this in our personal lives, it's difficult to apply it in our professional lives, because kids see through us, don't they? They know before we have to tell them our weather, they already know our weather. So some days we have to fake it really, really, really well, right? And my motto in my classroom was always fake it till you make it. And kids would paint me signs about that, because no matter what, in my classroom, my job was to choose sunshine. And sometimes it's hard on a cloudy day, isn't it? And so just for a moment, we're going to take, and we're going to shorten this up because we want to get you, remember, your main end in mind is your lunch, I know. So we want to get you to that. So we'll take about 1 minute to just think about, and this is kind of a personal reflection, how this habit could be used with students, maybe your own children, your grown children, and then also in your personal lives as adults. How does that affect you? So we'll just try to go about 1 minute on that.
All right, we're going to move into habit number 2, which is begin with the end in mind. We have a short video to watch. Beginning with the end in mind is about planning ahead and setting goals, do things that have meaning and make a difference, and knowing that you have an important role within your family, your work life, whatever it may be. You will make a difference in your role if you choose to.
In your mind's eye, picture your 80th birthday. Picture the faces of your friends and family as they come to wish you well. All these people have come to honor you, to express their feelings, to toast a life well spent. Imagine you are the person being honored, the subject of the speeches.
I've known Frank
What
for
would you like
nearly
the speaker to
40
say
years
about
now,
you,
and,
your life?
Hasn't changed a bit.
What would you like them to say about your character and contributions?
Frank is the most honest man I've ever known. He's been a great colleague and a wonderful friend. Happy birthday, Frank.
Now think deeply.
Thank you all. Thank you.
What achievements would you want them to remember?
I'd like to take just a moment.
What impact would you have liked to have made in their
I hope
lives?
this is a special day for you. I don't know how come I'm such a lucky girl. Thank you, Dad. I hope you have a great birthday. I love you, Dad.
Start living today with that picture of your own 80th birthday party clearly in mind. In that picture, you will find your definition of true success.
Just from you?
I have found that it is extremely helpful to write down what you truly desire inside a personal mission statement. In that written mission statement, you clarify for yourself what ends you serve, what you want to be, your character, what you want to do with your life, your contributions and achievements. Your mission statement is like a personal constitution. It's the basis for making major life-directing decisions, as well as smaller daily choices in the midst of all of the ups and downs of life. Mission statements come in all forms and shapes. It doesn't matter what form it's in, as long as it uniquely expresses you. Some come in the form of a poem or a collage of pictures. Some are long, others might be shorter. My own personal mission statement is only 3 words long. Code words, really. But to me, every single word is charged with very special private meaning. A mission statement is not something you write overnight. It may take several rewrites, but you don't let that stop you. Several years ago, I remember thinking deeply about my own mission statement, one that I had developed many, many years before. I was sitting alone on a beach at the end of a bicycle ride. I took out my mission statement and I really thought about it very, very deeply. It took several hours, but at the end, you can't imagine how I felt such a sense of clarity, such a sense of renewed commitment, such a sense of exhilaration and freedom. Once again, I knew what my life was all about. Viktor Frankl says, we detect rather than invent our missions in life. I like that choice of words. Detect rather than invent. You see, defining our mission really requires thinking through our deepest desires, our dreams, our sense of responsibility, our most intimate and satisfying relationships. Our meaning comes from within, from down deep within ourselves. A friend told me of a young university student he encountered. He said that he was majoring in civil engineering, but didn't seem too excited about it. Aware of his colleagues' boredom, he asked him a simple question.
Okay, I got a question for you. All right. Let's say you have all the time in the world, unlimited resources, money's not even an issue. What are you going to do with it?
Buy a table saw.
Table saw.
Yeah, and a planer. I'd set up shop in my garage and get all the kids in the neighborhood together. We'd build stuff, you know, tables, chairs, birdhouses, anything.
And then what? Do you sell it or?
Maybe. You know, just build stuff.
Hold it, if that's what you want to do, what are you doing taking 4 hours of structural analysis?
You know, it's a degree. Pays the bills eventually.
You know, you can actually get paid for teaching kids how to build things. Have you ever thought of pursuing that?
It was obvious that the student's decision to major in engineering was not the result of a deep interconnection with his own talents and dreams. But you know, when he touched that connection, that moment of realization, he suddenly saw the possibility of fulfilling his own uniqueness. He became totally energized. It was easy to see that he would be an incredible woodshop instructor, and with his love for teaching and woodworking, he would make a phenomenal difference. Every human being, every team, every organization has this quality of uniqueness, this unreproducible potential to make a contribution that no one else can make. But we must pay the price to discover what it is. As the poet Mary Oliver asks, doesn't everything die at last, and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
So they obviously focus on the long-term effects of habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. But in school, we often focus on the short term with students. So we use this habit a lot when we're talking about setting goals for this 9 weeks. You know, what can you do to earn good grades on your grade card, or what can you do to make it to the reward party at the end of the month with your good behavior? So we use goal setting a lot. But long-term, isn't a bad idea either. They do a lot with mission statements. That's a big process to go through, but those of you that have been through the Leader in Me training, if you've written a mission statement, it's great to reflect on that, because the idea is you want at your 80th birthday party people to say great things about the way you lived your life. And writing a mission statement kind of focuses you. So mine is work hard, play hard, because I love to work, but I also don't want to forget about my family, so we like to do fun things together too. So mine's simple, and I can remember it. And obviously everybody knows our district mission statement, which focuses us all on inspiring a community of achievement. We're going to move into, we want to give you time to reflect how you can use this habit. So we'll take a minute. If you have a pencil, if you want to jot down how you think this habit is useful in school and how you think you could use it in your role or your personal life, and then we'll move into habit number 3.
You guys are so quietly working that I don't know if we need to raise our hand or not, but we'll get moving on here, because we were trying to get you out at a good time too. So just a quick reflection about the fact that if we are being proactive, that means we're focusing on ourselves, and then we begin with the end in mind. What is our purpose? A lot of times Dr. Covey likes to talk about how we leave our legacy. And so if you have experienced any kind of loss, I'm sure this impacts you differently. You start thinking about that. And when I think about that, there's a great poem called The Dash, and it talks about we celebrate, on our tombstone, it has the day that we were born and the day that we passed, but what's most important is that dash, that time in between, and what do we want to leave behind. So I assure you, nobody will say that she was a heck of a house cleaner. Nobody will say anything like that about me, because that's not my priorities. So that leads us into habit 3, which is putting first things first. So this relates back to our mission statement, because a lot of us probably would include in our mission statements that our families are very important to us. That yes, we do need to work, as Leah said, but we also want to play and enjoy this time with our families. And if we're going to do this, we have to prioritize what we need to do in order to accomplish our mission in life. So put first things first says that we spend time on things that are most important. This means I say no to things I know I should not do. I set priorities, make a schedule, and follow my plan. I am disciplined and organized. And sometimes this is very difficult because we're exhausted at the end of the day. And so we can get sucked into that life of zoning out on the TV or playing Candy Crush, or something like that. We get sucked into that because we just want to be, and then we lose sight of our mission and putting first things first. So in this video clip, Dr. Covey talks about our big rocks, what he refers to as our big rocks, and if we put those in place first, it will help everything fall in line. So this is a great clip by Dr. Covey.
I need a volunteer. How would you like to consider that? Okay. You'd come up here, please. Your name is?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth? Thank you. Good to see you. Elizabeth, you've got Oh, you hold this. Very, very busy life, right?
I do.
You have a work life,
I do.
family life as well? Children?
Not yet.
Not yet. What's the nature of your work assignment?
Consulting.
Consulting. Do you have a part of a firm, a consulting firm?
Yes, I do. I direct an international firm.
An international firm. So you really are interfacing with all kinds of people in the firm and outside the firm.
That's right.
Do you also do direct work with the clients yourself?
That's right.
And you have a number of associates you work with all around this country and throughout the world? Starting?
Yes.
Kind of like us.
That's right.
You want a rich personal life and a rich family life and also community and so forth. Do you ever feel like you get bogged down in the thick of thin things?
Yes.
Do you ever feel like your life is kind of out of balance, out of whack?
It can be.
Do you ever feel like you're in the pounding surf? You know, where you just have one big wave after another knock you down, you stagger back, and then here comes another wave, then another one knocks you down to where it just kind of beats you up? Well, that might be analogous to all these little, small things that tend to fill our life. And that just little by little, they just accumulate. Now, your job, you can't go above this, is to get all those large rocks in the jar. Good luck. I'll describe each of the rocks as she puts them in. What's that one called?
Q2. Planning, preparation.
Right. Planning, preparation, prevention, and empowerment. Q2. That which is not urgent but important.
Right. Am I picking these up in any order?
Any way you want. You want to get them all in there because they're all important.
Can I move the little rocks?
Well, you have the little rocks as they are now, but you can't go above this.
Okay. Can I put this down?
Sure. Okay, the next rock she's putting in there is called relationships and family. She's trying to make it so she can get them all in there on the assumption that by moving the other ones around, it makes more space. We didn't look at that third rock you put in there. That's employment, some key employment issue, and then you put major projects here. I can't get it above there.
I haven't worked it yet.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not going to work.
That's called Service Community Church. Do you ever feel like this?
Yes.
How many feel like this?
Am I still going?
Yeah, you can. Try to get them in there. You're a hands-on person.
I am. Well. It's not very flat.
She just put down the sharpen the saw.
How many frequently do that? I just don't have time today to sharpen the saw. You ever been too busy driving to take time to get gas?
This one's important. So
Vacation's important to her.
oh, I
By moving the little things around, you might squeeze in one more of those big major things.
Does that count?
It's almost. Wow, that is good. You know, if it doesn't fit, force it.
Do I have to really put all of these in here?
Well, no. You can neglect a big opportunity if you want.
No.
Here's something that's called urgent and important. It's a quadrant 1 thing that is blindsiding you, that it's your biggest client, that if you don't get back to that client now, you've given up your vacation.
No.
And you have no special block of time just for yourself.
No.
You have no young children. I'll tell you what you can do if you want to.
What's that?
You can take a whole different approach. You have a totally fresh bowl. You can work out of a different paradigm altogether. You can do anything you want.
So I can use that bucket. That's what you're saying?
Anything, yeah.
Well, then I'd rather put these in the bottom. And then pour the little pebbles on top. Vacation.
Okay, she has sharpening the saw, planning, preparation,
Spouse.
spouse,
Vacation.
employment,
Big opportunity.
big opportunity,
Important and urgent. Block of time. Community. Church. Those young children keep looking at me. Glad my husband's not here. Now I dump these in there.
okay?
It's gonna work.
You got all the important things in first, right?
That's right.
I really love that, because how many times do we get caught up on the little things that we forget to do the big things? And that really impacts our lives. One thing that we forgot to mention is that Dr. Covey actually wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which was designed for adults. That was the whole plan behind this. Big companies around here like Honda train their people in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Nucor Steel right here in Marion also trains people on The 7 Habits, because it's so important. And a lot of times we find that our kids don't have a plan. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They don't begin with an in mind, and they don't put first things first, which is one of the big rocks. So this is such an important thing. So thinking about put first things first, maybe at this time you can take a moment and brainstorm. You know, think about some of your big rocks. And as you're thinking about how this applies to adults, think about your big rocks in your life, and think about your little rocks in your life, and maybe how you can balance those. And then also think about our big rocks to our kids. You know, I know in the classroom, because I was just there not very long ago, one of the things I did is I always had up their big rocks for the week. So they knew that every week they were going to have 20 minutes of reading a night. They knew that their big rocks were, we had our spelling test on this date. If I knew a science test was coming, they had it in their planner 2 weeks in advance. So nothing was a shock to them. And they knew if they had football or dance or gymnastics, cheerleading, whatever their big rocks are in their lives, their ability to sharpen the saw and have fun, they put those into their planner so that they could maneuver their lives around that time too. So if you just take about a minute to kind of reflect on how this put first things first could affect your lives and students' lives.
Okay, we strategically placed a lot of time and focus on the first 3 habits because it does start with you, and those habits are all about you. So we're going to go through the next 4 habits rather quickly. So habit 4 is think win-win. I balance courage for getting what I want with consideration for what others want. When conflicts arise, I look for a win-win solution. Kids love to talk about recess related to this habit because there's always lots of conflicts at recess, believe it or not, or on the bus. There's lots of conflicts on the bus. But think win-win means you're not just concerned about yourself. You want to come up with a solution that both people are happy with. So if you're competitive, you might have a tough time with habit 4, think win-win. And habit 5 is one that I personally always have to work on in my personal life because it's so important to listen to what others are saying and not being ready to respond. You're actually listening to understand. So it's seek first to understand, then to be understood. So I listen to other people's ideas and feelings. I try to see things from their viewpoint or their paradigm. I listen to others without interrupting. That's hard for me. I listen with my ears, my eyes, and my heart. I am confident in voicing my ideas. And my daughter will often correct me. Mommy, you need to seek first to understand when I jump down her throat about something I shouldn't. So this is a habit probably that all of us can work more on. So we're going to let you reflect on habit 4 and 5 together. Just do those 2 habits on your handout, how you can use them in your life. And then we'll move on to habits 6 and 7.
I know we're moving through, and I can't reiterate this enough, what Leah said, that if we can master, I believe if we can master habit 1, everything else comes pretty naturally. That's very difficult, and when we look at this public victory, it's very difficult sometimes, maybe because we're not focusing on putting first things first, that our minds are racing when we're talking to someone else, that we can't take time to seek first to understand, then be understood. There's a video we were just reflecting upon that Dr. Covey has, and he's talking about being in a subway, and these kids are just out of control, and everybody is sitting there looking at this man who's just ignoring his kids, and they're saying to themselves, why aren't you doing anything with your kids? They are out of control. Finally, someone braves it and says something to the man and says, you know, your children are really out of control. And the man looks at him with super sad eyes, and he says, I'm so sorry, we just left the hospital. My wife just passed away. I should be focused on my children, but I'm trying to, control myself. Sorry, I get like all teary-eyed and stuff. You know, if we think about where our children are coming from and what they see and where our colleagues are coming from and what they see, we had a 5th grade student the other day tell a teacher, she said, you would not want to live my life. She said, you would not want to live my life. She said, I have to worry about my mom and her boyfriend and my dad and his girlfriend, and I have to worry about my aunt, and my cousin is having trouble, and, I can't even worry about myself. And the teacher looked at her and she said, I don't think I could live your life. We don't know what everyone is carrying with them. And if we don't learn to understand each other or seek that in every moment of every day of our lives, then it causes us to be more reactive. And it's going to make it difficult for us to synergize. Synergize talks about we value other people's strengths and we learn from them. We get along well with others, even people who are different from us. We work well in groups. We seek out other people's ideas because we know that by teaming with others, we can create better solutions than what any one of us could do alone. Looking for third alternatives. Dr. Covey talks about 1 + 1 = 3 or more. That if we work together, the solutions that we can come up with will be far better than anything that we could have thought of alone. And that's where synergizing really comes in. And I have to attest from living through this as a classroom teacher and experiencing this with my children every day, they picked on this language far before I did. And they would be quick to call me out. And they would be quick to tell you somebody's not being proactive in a situation. And they would be quick to come up with things to own the classroom. Because bottom line is we're taking ownership of our own lives and we're encouraging our children to do the same. And if we can accomplish that, how much better will our community and world be if we can get everybody to own up for their choices that they make? So if you just want to take just a moment, I know we're rushing you, but we want you to be able to enjoy lunch and also have some time at the end here to reflect upon this as a group. And we want to get your collective ideas so that we can share those out. So we'll just give a minute on synergizing. Remember, that's that 1 + 1 = 3 or more. The math people in here will not like that idea, right?
All right, so wrapping up here, it's not that uncommon that the last thing that we do is sharpen the saw. And just kind of read through this in case any of you guys can't see it. And please know this is not me speaking. If you guys can read this and you have everything that I'm going to say figured out, find me after this because I struggle the most with habit 7. I eat right, exercise, and get enough sleep. I learn lots of ways and lots of places, not just at school. I spend time with my family and friends. I take time to find meaningful ways to help people. I balance all 4 parts of myself. So we're looking at our soul, our heart, our brain, and our body. So this is tying everything together. And again, I don't know if anybody else feels this way. I feel like life for me is moving about 6,000 miles an hour. And I'm at the back of the train just trying to hold on. So as you look through that and as you start to think about the day, in the context of the school, we all have to do this together. So, it's a classified thing. There's no teachers in here. I don't really see that, and I don't think any of us see that. I mean, we're all in this together. So in that vein, I'm going to go ahead and go to a quick video here to add a little bit of humor at the end of the day, and then I'll have some instructions as we finish.
Hello， 你是怎么搞的？哎，陆训练。这刘云来啦。
All right, so just a little bit of humor, but the message is the same. And to tie it back to the beginning, nothing in the definition of leadership says, well, if you're a bus driver, well, if you're a principal, your vision is this. Communicating someone's worth of potential so clearly that they're inspired to see it in themselves. Okay, so as we get closer to lunch, and we recognize that we are the barrier right now between you and eating, and that includes me, we are going to take about 10 minutes, and within your group, whether it's at your table, if you want to turn and talk to somebody behind you, that's fine. we're going to try to capture some reflective thoughts that you guys have had as it relates to the leader in me, as it relates to the culture, and as it relates to the most important variable that we interact with every day, which is our kids. Okay? We're going to give it about 10 minutes. It's 12 right now. So I'll raise my hand when we get to close to 10 minutes, and then we'll try to capture some of these thoughts and then release you guys for lunch.